welcome back to another episode of Even the Sparrow. My name is Nicole. I am a non-diet, food freedom registered dietitian and body image coach, and I love Jesus. And because I am all those things, because I have passion in all those areas, this is the podcast where we get to bring all of that together, where we get to talk non-diet nutrition and Jesus, where we get to talk about body image and Jesus, where we get to talk about disordered eating and relationship with food and Jesus, because he is a part of every part of our lives and he cares for every part of our lives, even the seemingly small areas of our lives. But for a lot of people, their relationship with food is more complicated than just going about their day and fueling their body and eating. A lot of people struggle with their relationship with food, and they struggle with body image as just kind of correlating with that, and their relationship with exercise. And I want to speak on those kind of topics. So if any of that resonates with you, this is the podcast for you. But at the time of filming this, it is Thanksgiving week. And at the time that this will be posted, it'll be the day after Thanksgiving. And right now, a lot of my clients are coming to me and expressing, Nicole, I have anxiety going into Thanksgiving. I feel stressed and overwhelmed with the idea of Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving week because of how food-centric the holiday is. These are clients that struggle with their relationship with food or disordered eating or poor body image, all of the above. They are struggling with the idea of dealing with food around this holiday. And so I want to speak to some of those worries, because by the time that you hear this, you've probably already had some of Thanksgiving meals, a Thanksgiving dinner, and maybe it's made you uncomfortable because you had more food than maybe what you were hoping to eat or what you were expecting, or more food than usual. Or maybe you're having foods that you don't normally let yourself have. Maybe you felt really out of control and you ate to the point of feeling sick and super overfull. Maybe you're used to having access to a gym and you don't have access to a gym, or maybe you're just taking more physical rest than normal, and all of those things are just eating at you. It's making you have really bad body image. You're worried about weight gain. You're worried about what these things are doing to your body, and your brain is just spiraling after Thanksgiving. And this can go for any holiday too. I want this to be a go-to comfort episode for after a day of big eating, no matter if it's a holiday like Christmas, Thanksgiving, or it's just a party, or you just had a day where you feel really down about how you ate yesterday. I want this to be an episode that can bring you some comfort, some encouragement, some wisdom, and also some practical tips for kind of how to cope and what you should do to kind of work through some of those uncomfortable feelings, and what you shouldn't do to work through some of those uncomfortable feelings. So with that being said, I want to jump into being a dietitian first before we get into some of the other mindset shifts and other tips that I want you to kind of have as you are dealing with the day after a big day of eating. So I really encourage you to eat your meals and snacks, eat your normal foods the day after. I think one of the biggest things that my clients struggle with is that urge to restrict or pull back on their eating, or just take out certain foods or avoid certain foods, maybe carbs or sweets, things like that, things that make them feel more guilty. Now they're going to remove that from their diet, or they're going to try and restrict it even more. Or maybe they might skip meals because, I ate a huge dinner last night. I'm not going to eat breakfast. I'm not going to eat lunch. We're just going to kind of go through the day eating as little as possible. I know that these mindsets can seem really extreme, but they are mindsets that I struggled with and that some of my clients struggle with. And so I want to be open and honest about some of these headspaces that you could find yourself in and speak to that. And as a dietitian, I really want to encourage you that restricting, changing the way that you eat like that isn't going to help you in the long term. Skipping that meal, restricting that food, it might be making you mentally feel a little bit better in that moment because you feel like you're quote unquote fixing that discomfort. You're balancing out all the food that you ate yesterday. And it might make you feel mentally a little bit better in this moment. That's not dealing with the root of some of the deeper things that you're struggling with. It's not going to make your body image magically better. It's not going to make your self-image better. And it's certainly not going to serve your health in the way that maybe that disordered mindset is making you think. And it's certainly not going to help you feel more balanced with food. When we start restricting ourselves and starting to deprive ourselves, that is not only reinforcing the idea that we have to earn food or we have to justify eating food when really you don't need to do that. You can eat because you want to. You can eat when you're hungry. You can eat because it's time to eat. You can eat for a lot of different reasons. But it's also setting you up to feel out of control with food later. What happens to some people is maybe they have a really big Thanksgiving dinner and they end up skipping their first meals of the day the next day because, oh, I just ate so much. I'm so full. I don't need it. But then by the evening, they're ravenous. They're starving. And so they feel like they engage with food again in a way that doesn't feel good. Like they feel like they're overeating or feeling sick again. And they might deal with some GI issues because of that. And it might just make food feel so negative overall. It's going to lead into an uncomfortable, unhealthy pattern of engaging with food if you do not continue to eat regularly throughout the day. Your body, it still needs that energy. It still needs that food. No matter how you wake up feeling about your body image, no matter how you wake up feeling about how you ate yesterday, what you ate yesterday does not determine your need to eat today. God actually gave you actually inherited that deserving or need to eat by being created by God as a human, by being created intricately and intentionally by God to require food for fuel at a very basic level, but also to have food for pleasure and for enjoyment and connection for all the different reasons. You actually inherit the right to wake up and eat your breakfast and eat your lunch and to fuel your body the next day because you are a human being. You don't have to justify that. God already justified that by creating you as a human with need for food, with a stomach, with needs for calories and energy. And so God already decided that for you. Who are we to say, no, I don't need food. My body suddenly doesn't need fuel. Your body did not say that, I promise you. Your metabolism is still going. You're still using food for energy. That need does not disappear no matter what you did yesterday. Do not believe that lie in your head, the enemy trying to tell you you don't deserve to fuel up. You overdid it yesterday. You're filthy. You don't deserve this. Don't listen to that and eat your regular meals. Try your best to fight that voice that is telling you to restrict or skip or skimp on eating enough because it's not going to help you mentally, emotionally, or physically in the long term. And just know that God has already given you permission to fuel your body today. The next thing that I want to talk about is going off of that, I want you to have a couple of reminders because I know I don't want to downplay the mental battle that can happen after engaging with a big meal or a big day of eating. A lot of my clients struggle with the idea of being out of their routines with food and with exercise. Maybe they don't have an access to the gym over their Thanksgiving season. Maybe they're traveling. Maybe they're traveling so much that they don't really get to plan for every single meal that they eat. And so they're feeling out of control there. And so I don't want to downplay the amount of mental load that you might be carrying, feeling overwhelmed with all these changes, with all the changes to your routine in general, but also around food and exercise. But I want you to remember a couple of really important things, especially about food, so that you can kind of reinforce a healthy mindset as you're battling with some of these mental battles and just these worries in your mind. And take out the notes app on your phone or write it on a sticky note or something where you see this so that you can kind of really start to believe it and remember it. Number one, my body knows what to do with the food that I ate. It sounds so interesting and simple, but I think a lot of people worry that something crazy will happen if I engage with food in this way. Just because you're feeling bloated today doesn't mean that your body is rejecting food. Just because you're feeling a little bit different in your body today doesn't mean that you're having a negative reaction to food. Remind yourself, my body knows what to do with this. My body's got it and it's okay. You're God's workmanship, which means that He crafted you with very, very intentional mechanisms. And this goes for digesting food and breaking down food. He created you with those things. And I think that it would help to release that burden by just giving that worry to God and saying, God, I'm giving you this worry about how my body is going to react to overeating or to eating these different foods that I'm not used to. I give this to you and trust that you have built in the mechanisms for my body to break this down. Your body knows what to do with it. Going off of that, remember that especially one day of eating, one meal, it cannot physically change your body. It will not change your body drastically in the way that you are fearing. I think that our brains can very quickly go to, oh my gosh, now my clothes don't fit. I gained all this weight. Side note, those things are not bad. A changing body is not a bad thing. But I think in general, a changing body can be stressful. And I think that we can really get in our heads and overwhelmed and anxious about how will this one day of eating this Thanksgiving meal, or I'm having 3 Thanksgiving meals, how is this going to change my body? It will not change it in the way that you are fearing. And maybe even write out, what are my worst fears? If my body did change in the way that I was fearing, what are the worst fears that I'm having about this? What at worst is going to happen as a result of my body changing in this way? There are 2 things that can happen. You could write this out and it could be silly as you're looking at it. You could be like, oh, what am I even worried about? It's okay. Or you could write out some really big fears and think, well, this has actually happened to me before. Or I could see that actually happening, or I don't know how I would cope with mentally and emotionally if that happened. And there we have identified that there needs to be work being done on your body image and your relationship with your body and self-image. And so I think that can be a really helpful exercise for either kind of looking at your worst fears and helping you understand this is really not a big deal. It's okay. And my body is not going to change in the way that I fear, but also it did change in the way that I fear and I feel uncomfortable about these worst fears, maybe I need to talk to somebody about it. Maybe I do really need to deal with some of these fears and the roots of these fears, because those root fears are not going to go away no matter if you lose weight, if you gain weight, you get your dream ideal body. It's not going to fix those fears. And so I think that would be a really good awareness exercise. But no matter what, your body's not going to change in the way that you are fearing. And so just remember that. Another tip, we're moving out of reminders and we're moving into other tips. Just wear some comfy clothes. Get into your comfiest clothes today, because if you're wearing uncomfortable clothes, your brain is going to naturally be drawn to the area of the clothes that feel too tight or that feel uncomfortable. For me, if my pants don't fit right, my brain will be fixated on my stomach area. And when I'm wearing clothes that are comfortable, pants that are comfortable, I don't even think about it. I do not even think about it. And so, especially on a day where maybe you're having some really hard body image moments after a big day of eating, you're really going to want to take intentional steps to take care of yourself and prevent some of those extra unnecessary thoughts about your body. So just get in clothes that are not overstimulating you, that are not tight in places that you feel insecure about, so that your brain can rest a little bit and not be fixated on those areas. If you're not in something comfortable, go put something comfortable on. I don't care what it looks like. Just be comfortable today and give yourself permission to do that. Another tip that I want to go into, actually a super powerful one that can make a big difference in your headspace the day after a big day of eating, where you could normally just feel really in a slump and really overwhelmed and anxious about your body and what you ate or didn't eat, would be, instead of spending all this time ruminating on that by being on social media, being subject to comparison or just diet culture noise, I highly recommend plan intentional rest and take a break from social media. Set a 15-minute limit. I think iPhones, you can do that. I don't know about other phones, but I'm pretty sure you can set limits for certain apps. Literally set a 15-minute, 10-minute limit on any social media that you do normally engage with. Set a limit. And outside of that, I want you to kind of build up your activity kit, I guess. Just things that you can do that are not social media, not on your phone, that kind of set that boundary between you and the rest of the world. So you're not comparing, you're not subject to comparison. So that could be reading. Head over to Barnes & Noble or order a book on Amazon, or go pull out that book that's super dusty that you bought 2 months ago that you meant to read. Get cozy, get a little tea, a hot chocolate, a coffee, and get super into that moment and romanticize it and enjoy it. Just soak yourself in something different. That could also be playing a game. I am not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to lie. I have been on a Nintendo Switch kick, and I just love playing little cozy games. It can be something like that. Like if you like video games, or if you like games on your phone with restrictions on apps, if you want to pull out a game and play with a friend or your significant other or family or something that can engage you outside of your phone, that's awesome as well. A thing that you can do kind of by yourself would be just drawing or coloring. I always talk about coloring books because I have one and I really love my cute little markers and my coloring book. I personally have a kind of like creative brain. And so creative outlets, even if I'm not like perfect at them, I still find really enjoyable. So coloring or drawing. And one that I really highly recommend, this next one, I highly recommend doing a prayer walk. If you have never done a prayer walk before, I think you're really going to love it, because going outside, being in nature, being disconnected from all the stimuli that are in your home, the electronics calling your name, the people that are around you, being removed from those things and just being on a walk in nature while talking to God is a really awesome thing that I like to do when my mind just feels super full and jumbled. Sit with God and be real about, hey God, I'm having a terrible body image day. We ate so much yesterday. I'm scared. Just be real with him. It does not need to be a quote unquote perfect sounding prayer. You don't need to pray for anything specific. Just start talking. Just brain dump to God while you're on this walk, and just allow the Spirit to return peace and comfort. And if that doesn't come as fully as you want it to, just know that God still sees you. And sometimes that immediate peace, it doesn't come, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't hear you. That doesn't mean he's not working in you, and you still got away from your phone. So either way, you're benefiting from it. Another thing, taking a gentle walk, by the way. We're not doing a walk with your Apple Watch. We're taking that off. It's a gentle walk in nature. Also, you could listen to a podcast. So just, those are some of those kind of like top, easy to engage with ideas that I like to engage with myself, or that I feel like would be super easy to get into just on a whim if you're listening to this and having a hard day and you need a break from social media. Let's do something else. Let's choose one of those things. The last important tip and point that I want to make the day after a big day of eating, when you're struggling with food, you're struggling with body image, is I want to emphasize the importance of not trying to compensate for this big day of eating by exercising, over-exercising, or feeling like you need to burn off what you ate yesterday. And I want you to be intentional to go on your notes app and write out a couple of boundaries that you're going to set to avoid over-exercising or engaging with exercise in a harmful way. Because what this does is this reinforces to the brain, say, if we feel like we overate yesterday, we ate more than we're comfortable with, then the next day or that same day, we go on a run, even though we're super tired, lethargic. We don't want to do that. Nothing in ourselves wants to do that, except you can't get rid of this guilt. And the only way to get rid of this guilt, you think, is exercise. Let's say you go for a run because you feel bad about what you ate today. That is reinforcing to the brain that exercise has to follow eating. And so that pattern is going to be super hard to break, because your brain really thinks that, hey, well, if I eat more than I'm used to, if I eat foods that I don't usually let myself eat, I have to exercise after that in order to feel better. That is a really unhealthy pattern to have. I need you to recognize that. If you're struggling with that, I used to struggle with that. If you are struggling with that, recognize that as a not normal or healthy pattern of thinking. And I really want to encourage you to take a practical step to start breaking that thought pattern and breaking that mindset. And so I want to remind you that this is a very good time to lean into resting. Sit with that discomfort. Let your brain be a little uncomfortable with not engaging with exercise in the way that you normally would after a big day of eating. Let yourself rest. Your body needs it. But also, if movement is something that you really want to engage with for whatever reason, actively setting a boundary to start breaking some of that mindset. For example, you want to run X amount of miles. That's what will make you feel better. Well, can you go into that setting a boundary of, I'm actually going to go ahead and walk, and I'm going to walk max X miles or max 10 minutes. Like, I'll allow myself to move my body. Maybe that would feel good, but I won't let it get to this point where it's disordered and it's overdoing it. Set an intentional boundary with the exercise that you do engage in. Say, I'm going to do it for 10 minutes less, or I'm going to do low intensity, gentle movement if I must move my body. Be intentional to set that boundary with yourself, because it is time, sister. It's time to break that thought pattern that will not be a healthy or useful thought pattern or behavioral pattern in the long term. And I promise you, it'll feel so much more freeing to not feel obligated to exercise when you're feeling negative about yourself. It's going to feel so much more life-giving to engage with exercise because your body's asking for it or craving it. It's going to feel so much more freeing to be able to choose how you exercise based off of what you feel like doing. And so I want to encourage you that now is the time to start challenging some of those mindsets that are keeping you in bondage to this specific routine, this rigidity, and this shame guilt cycle. Let's start breaking that now. Okay, those are some of the main tips and talking points that I wanted to bring up today, but I just want to remind you that it is okay if you ate more than you were expecting to. It's okay if you had more dessert than you were expecting to. It's okay if you feel bloated today. It's okay if you feel a little sick. Your body knows what to do with it. You're a normal human being. You're not bad for that. There is no reason to feel guilty. And it's okay to rest. You don't need to earn or deserve rest. You don't need to do anything about what you ate yesterday. There is no obligation to need to do anything about it or to cancel it out. You deserve to just exist today. God gave you that gift of just being able to exist because you woke up today. And He's inviting you to come meet with Him today. I know we talked about prayer walking, but I mean, the biggest thing that you could do is to get into scripture. Not that we'll always feel, again, we won't always feel immediately better even reading scripture, but it's life-giving. And that's what you need right now. Social media and being on your phone, that sucks life out of you. That takes from you. It takes attention. It takes energy. It takes all of these things from you. But the word of God will never return void. It will never take from you. It always is something that enlightens your mind and your heart, that injects goodness into your heart and into your mind. And just know from a dietitian that everything is okay. Know that you have permission to eat normally today. You have permission to rest. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. I just hope that you have a wonderful rest of your holiday weekend. And if you're listening to this another time, I just pray that you would have a blessed day. And I hope to see you again next time. And if you're not already in my community on social media on Instagram, I highly recommend and would love for you to join my community at overflow.nutrition.dietitian. I'd love to see you there. And just know that I would be honored to support you in your journey with food freedom or non-diet nutrition, body image, disordered eating in any way that I can. So I'm in your corner, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.